San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. As today the Padres take on the San Francisco Giants in the third game of a four-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Giants, right-hander Tyler Mahle, and for the Padres, right-hander Walker Buehler. Hi again, everybody. Sam Levitt with you from inside the Western Metal Building here at Petco Park. First pitch is coming up at 5:40 p.m. as the Padres continue this six-game homestand. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do. We'll hear from Padres manager Craig Stammen. We'll hear from today's starting pitcher, Walker Buehler. We have our keys to today's game. We'll look at the out-of-town scoreboard and much, much more. Plus, we'll check in with the Padres radio booth in just a few minutes. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa Vista and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres come in 56-54. They've won 6 of their last 7 games. They enter the day just 1 game out of the final National League wildcard spot. A win today would push the Padres 3 games above 500 for the first time in more than a month. Meanwhile, San Francisco comes in 47-63. They arrived in San Diego having won 2 straight series against the Brewers and the Angels. Well, the Giants won the series opener between these two teams on Thursday. Last night, a very, very different story. Let's quickly rewind.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
Bradley Rodriguez started the game as the Padres opener last night. He struck out 2 in a scoreless first inning. Padres got right to work against lefty Carson Whisenhunt in the bottom half of the inning. Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a leadoff double. Luis Rengifo singled to send Tatis to third base. Manny Machado was next.
First and third, nobody out. 3-0 the pitch. Manny swings, hits a laser to left field. Ramos comes in, makes the catch. Fernando tagging on his way. Throw to the plate, no chance to get him. He scores standing up. It's a sacrifice fly, another hard hit ball, and a 1-0 Padre lead.
Padres weren't done in the first inning. Later in the frame, 2 runners on base for Luis Campusano.
And Campusano strokes it out to left center field. That's going to get down in a base hit. Rengifo rounding third. He'll score easily. France on his way to third. An RBI single for Campusano. And the Padre lead 2-0 here in the bottom of the first.
Yuki Matsui incredible last night. A career-high 3 scoreless innings in relief. The Padres offense kept it rolling. In the bottom half of the 4th inning, Jace Bowen had a memorable swing.
Bowen launches one in the air to left field and deep. Ramos is back. He's at the wall looking up. This one gonna go! Jace Bowen's first major league home run. Western Metal. And the Padres add on. It's 4-0.
Ask and you shall receive. Padres looking for more runs. Jace Bowen provided. First big league homer. Padres lead 4-0.
Padres weren't done later in the inning. A couple of runners in scoring position for Ty France.
3-1 the pitch. And France swings, lines it into center field. McCray over, not going to get there. It drops down. Both runs will score. Tatis and Rengifo check in. A 2-run single for Ty France and a 6-0 Padre lead in the 4th.
Padres eventually would make it 7-0. German Marquez took over in the 5th inning. He was tremendous out of the bullpen. 5 scoreless innings of relief. In fact, he was credited with a 5-inning save, the first 5-inning save in Padre history since 1969. Just the second ever 5-inning save in the history of the franchise. Rodriguez, Matsui, and Marquez combining for a 2-hit shutout last night. They were spectacular. Padres won it 7-0, and they even up this series at a game apiece as we get you ready for game 3 of this 4-game set against San Francisco. First pitch coming your way at 5:40. Let's go inside the Jerry Coleman Broadcast Center.
Let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, Jesse, the Padres pitching chaos worked beautifully yesterday. Today we get back to a bit of a more normal situation with right-hander Walker Buehler on the mound for San Diego. Jesse, I recall a conversation you and I had right after the All-Star break before Walker made his first start after the break about how important it would be for Walker Buehler to get back on track. Final 2 starts of July, Jesse, he certainly did that, and that certainly seems like a really big deal, the fact that Walker Buehler seems to have found it again.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think we also talked about, maybe he was just, wiped out like the rest of us going into the All-Star break, and certainly I think he took the break, he got a break, and since then he's looked like himself once again, and that's obviously been huge for the Padres. I think it's well established at this point that they need as much as they can get. Sorry, it looks like a big lineup change for the Giants coming. So just was taking a peek at that. Maybe a sign of something, maybe not. But yeah, so I mean, look, they need starting pitching. We know that big time. And so look, you get big starts out of guys like Buehler and King that allows them to do what they're doing with all the chaos and everything else, and that sets up with whatever may come between now and Monday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, should be an interesting couple of days for sure. Let's talk about the guy on the mound for the Giants today, a guy that very well could be moved before the deadline. That is right-hander Tyler Mahle, a guy who's put together a fairly good season. Jesse, your thoughts on Tyler Mahle, who will face the Padres lineup here today?
Yeah, Tyler Mahle, I hope this does not sound like I'm talking down about Tyler Mahle. Because everything I'm about to say about Tyler Mahle, in my mind, makes him incredibly valuable to a contending team. But he's just like, he is a rock-solid, average Major League starting pitcher. There's nothing that jumps out about Tyler Mahle. There's nothing that stands out about Tyler Mahle. He's a regular starting pitcher. And you know what? There are not enough of those guys in the major leagues right now, as everybody knows that follows this game, right? I mean, it used to be there were a million Tyler Mahles in the major leagues, and it was everybody's third or fourth starter was a Tyler Mahle. And in today's game, there just aren't a lot of those guys. But now, if you're a contending team and it's August 1st, you are probably desperate for a guy like Tyler Mahle, just sort of a normal dude that can go out there every 5 days and pitch. And that's kind of what he is. Now, he was great in his last start Monday night against the Brewers, threw 6 shutout innings, only gave up 3 hits, only struck out 3 guys. That's what he is. He's not going to blow 96, 97. He's not going to strike out 10 guys. But he's going to give you some innings. He's going to keep you in the game most times. Not every time, but most times. And, that is so, so valuable for these teams that are trying to get to the playoffs, because he's not going to burn up your bullpen. He's not going to mess you up. And he's going to give you a chance to win, as I said, most often. So, that's what Tyler Mahle is. He's just sort of a guy, and that makes him very, very valuable to other teams who are contending, much more so probably than the Giants.
Yeah, sounds like a guy the Padres could use, quite frankly. Just a guy who can go out there and eat up some innings and be fairly effective. We're joined by Jesse Agler on our pregame coverage. Jesse, let's quickly touch on the offense. Yesterday was so good on the pitching side of things, but I will say it felt equally as good on the offensive side of things, because the Padres had a pretty quiet Wednesday despite beating Colorado, pretty quiet offensive day. Then sort of had a rough game against Robbie Ray, sort of understandable on Thursday. You felt like yesterday, they're facing a starting pitcher. You feel like they should be able to handle, and they did. To me, it felt like yesterday was a pretty encouraging sign that the Padres offense is continuing to cook right now. What'd you think?
Yeah, I don't know that I was particularly discouraged. And look, it's fair what you pointed out in terms of the Rocky game and the Robbie Ray game. But I think we've just seen enough of a sample right now to feel like these guys are going pretty good. And look, yesterday went overall as well as any game maybe all season, when you consider both the offense and the pitching. I mean, I was walking in my car with Tony last night, and we were crossing the parking lot, and I was like, it was almost scary how well that game went. It was like you almost kept waiting for something bad to happen, because it was all just so positive. And when does that ever happen for any team, where everything is good all night long? But, I mean, that's how it went last night. And the offense, I mean, they didn't go down 1-2-3 until the 8th inning. And obviously the game was so at hand By that point, it was, all but decided. So, it was a good reminder of the way they've been hitting lately and what they've been capable of as of late. And so, very encouraging. You got the home run in there from Bowen, but they did it the other ways. They got guys on, they got guys in. You had a sac fly mixed in or two. You had some base hits in there. They took their walks. They cashed in those walks. You had those first and third one-out situations where they didn't strand the guys. All of those things, kind of the signs of an offense that's doing what it is supposed to be doing, I guess.
Jesse, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you and Tony coming up at 5:30. Thanks so much.
You got it, Sam.
All right, Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for first pitch coming your way at 5:40. Padres looking to make it 7 wins in their last 8 games. Padres playing very good baseball right now. The trade deadline less than 48 hours away. We'll play tonight. We'll play tomorrow. But before that game on Monday night in Arizona, the trade deadline will have come and pass. So going to be an interesting 48 hours or so. There have been some trades in Major League Baseball the last 24 hours or so. We'll get to those in our Around the Horn segment in our next segment here coming out of the break, but nothing really major yet. So still seems like the baseball world is waiting for the trade deadline to really heat up. We'll see how the Padres are involved in the next 48 hours as we lead up to the 2026 trade deadline. When we come back, we'll take our first look at the Padres lineup. Plus, we hear from Padres manager Craig Stammen. A little bit later, we'll hear from tonight's starting pitcher Walker Buehler as we get ready for first pitch coming your way at 5:40 right here from Petco Park on the Padres Radio Network.
Stay tuned to the
EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we get ready for first pitch coming your way at 5:40 p.m. Right-hander Walker Buehler on the mound for the Padres and right-hander Tyler Mahle on the mound for San Francisco. Padres looking for a second straight win. They lost the series opener on Thursday, bounced back with a really, really nice 7-0 win in yesterday's game, a two-hit shutout yesterday between Bradley Rodriguez, Yuki Matsui, and German Marquez. And now today, the Padres trying to get a win on this Saturday in Game 3 of this 4-game series. Our pregame coverage is always brought to you by EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com or call 760-350-3338. That's 760-350-3338. Everybody having a good time inside the loft on this Saturday evening, enjoying their drinks and all the great food they have here at Petco Park. I'm definitely going onto the concourse tonight to get some food, so been thinking all day about what I'm going to eat tonight. You know what I'm thinking about getting tonight? I'm thinking about getting the carnitas tater tots from the Carnitas Snack Shack, I think it's called. I'm saying this off the memory here off the top of my head. Right below where I sit in left field, not right below in the Western Metal Building, but just to my left in left field beyond the left field wall. So it's kind of what I'm thinking about tonight. We'll see if I do indeed get that for dinner tonight as we get ready for Game 3 of this 4-game series. Quick look at the Padres lineup here today. Looks like this. Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field leading off. Jake Cronenworth at second base batting second. Manny Machado at third base batting third. Ty France at first base batting cleanup. Jackson Merrill in center field batting fifth. Luis Rengifo DHing and batting sixth. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop batting seventh. Freddie Fermin is doing the catching and batting eighth. And Jace Bowen getting another start in left field and batting ninth with right-hander Walker Buehler on the hill. With all that in mind, let's go downstairs and hear from the Padre manager, Craig Stammen.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres skipper Craig Stammen. Served up by Sinley Food. If you've had better chicken, you must be a rooster.
Big league home run. What was it like to get to witness that? You guys all looked pretty excited for him yesterday.
Yeah, you were always excited for the young guys to get some of their firsts out of the way, and Chase had, a really good spring training for us, had a great start to the season in El Paso, came up here, went through the struggles, but now we're seeing him kind of come out of those struggles and be who he really is and feel comfortable here, and it's nice to see the results of, all the work that he's put in here lately.
So overall, it seems over the past few days in this homestand, the pitching by chaos situation seemed to have worked out pretty well. But now to have Walker Buehler and Michael King tomorrow, what's the value of that just moving forward? And I know the pitching by chaos isn't necessarily what you guys intend to do for the rest of the season, but just to have those guys back on the mound today and tomorrow, what's that mean?
Yeah, we always feel confident with all of our pitchers, but it's nice to have, Walker and Michael. We're depending on those guys to kind of give us a normal start, to give us some extra innings. Although our bullpens provided a lot of innings the last couple of days. So, it can all come in different shapes, forms. Today we're hoping Walker Buehler, does this thing that we've come accustomed to and gets us set up, for success.
Walker had the bit of a rough stretch before the All-Star break. It seems like he's bounced back pretty nicely after a little bit of rest. What stood out to you about what Walker's done lately?
Yeah, he's just continuing to compete. He believes in himself, as much as any player that we have. And as long as we support him in the same way and believe in him in that same way, I think he's going to have more success than not.
Going back to Jace Bowen, it feels like whenever young players come up, they can sometimes, be put in a bit of a tough position where they're so used to playing every day, and then they get to the big leagues and they're not playing every day. How do you go about, I suppose, from your chair now, managing through that when you're dealing with a guy who's on the bench a lot and he's so used to throughout his career playing every day?
Yeah, I think my job is to try to find a role for them and then get them really comfortable in that role and then be great at that role. And I think sometimes it takes learning to figure that out from his perspective and my perspective of, what I value him for as our team, what I think he's really good at, and then convincing him that, hey, this is your role on the team and this you're going to help our team win a lot of baseball games. And I think we're getting to that point with a lot of guys.
I know you talked about it a little bit last night, but just going back to Yuki Matsui, for him to go out there and set a career high in innings, what does that say about Yuki? Not just the effectiveness, but the willingness to go out and do what he did last night?
Yeah, I'll do whatever I want to help, or whatever I can to help the team win. That was his mentality on the mound that entire outing, whether he said it or not. That was the actions that he portrayed. And, one guy does it, feeds into another guy, feeds into another guy, feeds into another guy, and pretty soon you have 26 guys doing things for the team.
Just because you've also been in that position as a bullpen guy, when you have a bullpen, especially in your current situation with the pitching strategy, when you have a bullpen full of guys that are willing to buy in to a certain strategy, is that something that, kind of one guy can rub off on the next guy when they see somebody like Yuki go out there and do what he did yesterday?
Yeah, 100%. I think anytime someone plays selflessly, it's a radar going off to the rest of the ball club that, hey, this guy's all in it for us to win. Let's pick him up and let's do the same thing.
How do you think that kind of mentality can trickle over to the offense and just the team as a whole?
Yeah, I think it trickles over to everybody. If you're watching the game, we all saw that Yuki kind of, put his body on the line to help us win the game. And, I think everybody else is kind of in that collective attitude right now. And the more that we see it from individuals, collectively that helps all of us.
Is Jace starting to use the other homer yesterday? Is that your rule?
It's not my rule, but it has been a rule of late.
Why did you go with him today over Sheets? Is Sheets good?
Yeah, Sheets is good. The starting pitcher for the Giants has reverse splits, so and Jace has been hitting. His swings have been better lately, so it's a little bit of a combination of that. And we can bring Sheets off the bench in a good big spot.
What have you seen from Sheets lately? He's a tough couple months.
Yeah, he hasn't had as much power here in July, but one thing he has done is control the strike zone really well. He's been getting on base for us, so he's finding different ways to impact the game.
It seems like with Gavin, just watching him, not that I'm a hitting guru, but it seems like he's been close. Like there's been a lot of long foul balls. It seems like he's kind of been on a lot of pitches, but just not quite there. Do you get that sense?
Yeah, right now his field has shifted a little bit to the right. If we can shift that field back, to the left a little bit, those long foul balls turn into long home runs to right field. So that's what they're working on in the cage. It's what he's working on. He's battling, a lot of different things. It's late in the season. Physically, you're not the same. Mentally, you're trying to hang in there. So the good thing is he kind of carried us early in the year, kept us alive, and now the other guys are picking him up and carrying the rest of the ball club.
Jeremiah Estrada looked like he had nice pop and a couple of good splitters. It seems like you guys have managed him really well this year, where he's sort of proactive and finding his rest, and then he comes back and he's good. You kind of get into that process and what you see from him right now?
Yeah, I think, one, we just need to take care of all of our players in the right way so that they can, hopefully it leads to success. I think we had to be very patient with him, in his injury and getting him back and not trying to push him because we wanted him back quickly, and it just wasn't the case. But I know that he feels comfortable out on the mound now, and we've seen good stuff the game that he pitched, and hopefully we'll see more of that continued as we go farther.
I think this will be the final time pregame we talk to you before the deadline. You obviously were experienced it as a player inside a clubhouse. I know there's still a ways to go until the actual deadline, but has this been any different for you as a manager, sort of the lead up and the rumor mill, things like that?
I just got to answer all the questions. That's the only difference, honestly. I think I felt it the same way about it as I did as a player. It's out of your control. Yeah. And I've tried to keep that noise out of the clubhouse as much as possible, which is basically just me ignoring it. And I think the players have had, they're playing well right now, and I think we're just focused on the games. And when we focus on the games, that eliminates a lot of the other distractions. But one thing baseball players are elite at is compartmentalizing and being able to block out things and then go play the game. So they've done a great job of that this week. Couldn't ask for anything more. Hopefully their manager's doing the same thing.
That was Padres manager Craig Stammen earlier today inside the Padres dugout. We'll hear more from Craig on our post-game coverage coming up later on this evening. Sam Levitt back with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building at Petco Park as we walk you up towards first pitch coming your way at 5:40 p.m. Let's quickly pause for station identification on the Padres Radio Network.
KWFN and KWFN HD1 San Diego.
Hey, this is Luis Campusano, catcher from the San Diego Padres. You're listening to Padres Baseball on the Padres Radio Network.
And Odyssey Sports Station.
First pitch coming your way at 5:40. Walker Buehler on the mound for the Padres today. Right-hander Tyler Mahle on the mound for San Francisco. You heard from Luis Campusano there. Campy, despite having 3 hits yesterday, not in the lineup today. Freddie Fermin is doing the catching and batting eighth. Luis Rengifo DHing in today's lineup. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to step up their game? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not. Presented by ASAP Drain Guys and Plumbing, a division of Anderson Commercial, your full-service plumber serving San Diego County.
Let's begin with a look at the hot category. Number of guys in there right now for the Padres. Jackson Merrill batting .391 with 5 home runs, 2 doubles, and 10 RBIs in his last 12 games. Luis Rengifo batting .400 in his last 12 games, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs in that span. Manny Machado hitting .333 with 7 extra base hits, 9 RBIs in his last 11 games. But Manny, and we pointed this out yesterday, he's not been good against the Giants this year. Manny just 3 for 31 against the Giants so far this season. Ty France batting .388 with 6 home runs, 19 RBIs in his last 18 games. You heard Craig Stammen talk about Gavin Sheets just a moment ago. Gavin in the not category for us today. Gavin just 5 for his last 50. Not on the lineup today. We'll see if Gavin comes off the bench at all in this one. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not. Well, there have been some trades around the majors the last 24 hours or so. Let's get to it as we take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
Well, let's get to some of the trades that have happened here lately. Nothing major. I assume those are going to come at some point, but handful of trades in the last 24 hours. The Pirates have acquired reliever Camilo Doval, former Giant Camilo Doval, in a trade with the Yankees. Yankees will cover a portion of Doval's salary. They are receiving a pair of minor leaguers in catcher Omar Alfonso and outfielder Luis Cruz from Pittsburgh. The Twins acquired starting pitcher Dean Kramer from the Orioles yesterday. That was one day after grabbing relief pitcher A.J. Minter from the Mets. The Twins sending prospect, an 18-year-old Leonardo Reyes to Baltimore in exchange for Kramer. The Guardians acquired relief help and outfield depth from the Brewers. Earlier this morning, they traded right-handed pitcher Craig Yoho and switch hitter Blake Perkins. The Brewers did to the Guardians in exchange for minor league catcher Bo Naylor and right-handed pitcher Cody Hewer. So again, Naylor and Hewer going to Cleveland, Naylor and Hewer going to Milwaukee, and the Brewers sending Yoho and Perkins to Cleveland. Finally, a little bit of news here on the Giants front. The Giants have announced they are suspending payment to Harrison Bader after he aggravated his injured left foot when he crashed on a scooter last weekend. Bader has been out since late May. He's been dealing with plantar fasciitis in his left foot. The team said the injury got worse after the accident early Sunday morning in San Francisco. That has been a pretty interesting story in Giantland lately. The accident with Harrison Bader, and the Giants look like they don't want to pay him because of the accident. So interesting story there. And that's a look at some of the headlines, some of the trades that have gone on from around the major leagues. When we come back, we'll tell you the latest on Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove as they continue to work their way back towards the Padres rotation. We have our keys to today's game. Plus, we hear from today's starting pitcher, Walker Buehler. Much more to do on our pregame coverage. First pitch coming up at 5:40 right here on the Padres Radio Network.
Hey, friends, it's Wood.
Padres baseball coming up on this Saturday night from Petco Park. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft here at the Western Metal Building as we get ready for first pitch coming your way at 5:40 p.m. Game 3 of this 4-game series between the Padres and the San Francisco Giants. Let's give you the latest on Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit them up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, the news continues to be positive on Joe and Nick. They both threw bullpen sessions today, and according to Padre manager Craig Stammen, as long as everything goes well with those, they recover well from those, the next step for both Nick and Joe will be some kind of rehab assignment, some kind of actual rehab start. So again, both those guys threw bullpens today here at Petco Park. We'll see how they recover, and as long as everything goes well and continues to progress well, they will take the next step in some kind of rehab start. Not sure what that's going to look like, where it'll be, what level it'll be at, but some kind of a more formal rehab start will be the next step for both those guys. So continues to be pretty good news on Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta, and as we have updates on those guys, we will continue to pass them along. Let's take a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard, tell you what's going on today around the major leagues.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
We have a few finals already today. Mariners beat the Twins 4-3 in Seattle. Marlins beat the Mets 6-2 in New York. Rays beat the White Sox 1-0 in Tampa Bay. Blue Jays over the Cardinals 5-1 in Toronto. Games going on right now. Pirates ahead of the Reds 3-1 in Cincinnati in the 6th inning. Phillies and the Orioles are scoreless in the 5th inning. In Baltimore, the Astros lead the Rangers 3-1 in the 4th inning. In Houston, Guardians 2, Diamondbacks 1 in Cleveland in the 3rd. Braves lead the Nats 4-0 in Atlanta in the 5th inning. Cubs ahead of the Yankees 1-0 in Chicago in the 4th inning. Royals and the Rockies are scoreless, just underway in Colorado. We've got 3 games coming up aside from this one. Red Sox and the Dodgers at 6:10 in LA. Brewers and the Angels in Anaheim at 6:38, and the Tigers and the A's in Sacramento at 6:40. And that is a quick full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll have much more on all those games coming up a little bit later during our post-game coverage. Well, tonight's right-hander on the mound for the Padres, Walker Buehler, joined 97.3 The Fan on Friday. Great interview with the Gwynn and Chris program, so it felt like a very good day to revisit some of the things that Walker had to say with Buehler on the mound here tonight. Remember, Walker Buehler had a sensational month of June. His month of July did not get off to a very good start at all. He did wrap up last month with 2 pretty good outings. We'll get more into the numbers a little bit later. Here was Walker Buehler during that interview right here on 97.3 The Fan on trying to get back to what he did in June.
Yeah, I think the past 2 outings have given up a few runs kind of here and there and been pretty pleased with it, but largely it's been, self-induced, right? Walking guys or kind of putting myself in a bad spot. And so for me, I think the kind of recipe is what it is. Don't put guys on base, and, I'm going to give up hits here and there, but you avoid the big one and avoid the big inning. Things have kind of been good. And, my first 3 in July were kind of the opposite of that, and that I was getting hit and hit kind of hard, as well as kind of making the mistakes on my own. So, luckily we've kind of gotten rid of a little piece of that, and now I think it's kind of putting it all together. It's hard to say that this late in the year, but, at the end of the day, I'm trying to get back to being a really good major league starting pitcher, and I don't know if that's necessarily something that happens overnight or in 1 year, but I think we've done a really good job, and the coaching staff has helped me a ton in terms of getting my body in a spot that at least it can kind of catch up to what, the stuff my brain wants to do.
That was Walker Buehler. Nice answer there. Here was Walker Buehler on the use of his cutter in particular.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that pitch in particular, I really started throwing a lot of them in 2021, which was probably my best year. And, I think people kind of forget that pitch is based off the fastball, right? And so,
right.
There's certain days where I feel like we overuse it, and or I throw too many of them, and we get deeper into games and it's kind of not as effective. And so, I think trying to establish my four-seam fastball, regardless of the fact that it's not 95, 97, 98 like it was, in years past, I think is important for me, and letting that kind of be a weapon and not really the whole show. And I think in a lot of these games that I've pitched well, these cutters are late in at bats or in advantage counts, not trying to bail me out. And I think, I have a tendency to kind of run to it when things get a little squirrely on me. But the games that I've been really good this year or felt really good about the way I threw the ball, largely the cutter wasn't kind of as common a throw. It was a little bit more sparingly, but I think especially with some of the struggles that I've had and trying to kind of survive any way I can, I think naturally we're going to throw a lot of them. And I just think it moves a little bit differently than other people's cutters. I think in today's day and age in our game, everything's so data driven and everyone kind of can quantify everything that everyone does, right? And so we're trying to find ways to throw, some people call them unicorn pitches or just kind of outliers, certain release points, certain heights, how you can make the ball move from certain spots, creates angles that are hard for hitters to deal with. And I think my cutter largely is one of those pitches that there's just not many of them that move quite in the same, shape that mine does.
That was Walker Buehler on using his cutter. One more nice answer here from Walker Buehler from that interview on Friday. Here was Walker on the Padres pitching strategy as of late, all these bullpen games, and the bulk innings role that guys have been taking on as of late.
I think people kind of forget, obviously I spent a lot of years in LA. We did some wild stuff over there as well. And, the game is just different now, right? Not everyone lines up and throws 7 innings off the jump like they used to. And as I said, I think everything's a little bit more quantifiable and it takes way less time for guys to get figured out here. And so this kind of new bulk role that I think is coming into the big leagues it has certainly been effective and we've been, doing some really good things with it. I think on my head in the union side, having been the rep in LA for a bit, I think it's a very tough role for a player because the current system, as we've got the CBA kind of coming up, is not set up to reward guys like that. So I don't want to kind of tinfoil hat and say that teams are doing it for that reason, but it certainly doesn't hurt when you have a guy that can go and give you bulk innings and then you don't have to pay him like a starting pitcher, right? And so there's just a lot about, kind of things that are effective but aren't effectively great for the player. I think the starting pitching, the lack of kind of traditional starting pitching or the way that role has changed is bad for players. And so, at the end of the day, I'm happy that we're winning, and I think a lot of these guys are kind of finding success in that role. I think all of them would tell you they'd rather throw 5 or 6 innings at a time as well, and that's how they grew up. And so it's an interesting deal. Obviously, we're in the middle of a playoff run, and we're trying to, kind of piece it together. But, at least for me personally, that's not something I would really be interested in doing or think that I would do very well at. I think a lot of the value in myself as a player is that I'm not afraid to go throw 100 pitches even when I'm losing and stay in games and try and eat innings and things like that, or when things are going well to try and be efficient enough to stay in there for a while. So, I think that's a little bit more in my head than it is in kind of what's happened for me on the field this year. But at the end of the day, that's what I was kind of raised doing, and that's what I did when I was at my best. And I think that's what I'm kind of looking to try and achieve myself.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Rock and Block Turf and Hardscapes. Beautiful artificial turf that stays green all year long. Trust and experience. The job isn't done until it's done right. See them at rockandblocklandscape.com.
Our keys to tonight's game. Let's give you a couple of quick keys here. Key number 1, hey offense, do it again. Padres scored 3 runs on Wednesday, just 1 run on Thursday, but yesterday they woke up in a big way. 7 runs on 12 hits. The Padres average more than 5 runs per game in the month of July. We'll see if they can continue that momentum into the month of August. And look, the performance of the Stars really tells the story. Before July, here were the OPSs for Manny, Fernando, and Jackson Merrill. 673, 728, and 613. In July, those numbers jumped up to 921, 860, and 860. Those guys way more productive. A big reason why the Padres offense was so much better in July. Can the Padres continue that kind of offensive production into August? Then key number 2, slow down Daniel Susac. 3 home runs in his last 2 games for the Giant catcher. That's after hitting none in his first 44 major league games. Had a day off yesterday. Back in the San Francisco lineup here today. So slowing down Susac, that is key number 2, and that's a quick look at some keys to today's game. When we come back, we continue to get you ready for first pitch coming up at 5:40 right here on the Padres Radio Network.
Keep it locked to the
EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. First pitch coming up at 5:40, Game 3 of this 4-game series between the Padres and Giants. Let's tell you what to watch for.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovements.com.
What to watch for in this one? Can Fernando Tatis Jr. set the tone once again? Fernando has been really good in his very first at-bat of the night lately to begin these games in the bottom half of the first inning. Fernando doubled in the first inning last night out of the leadoff spot. He has 2 doubles and 2 singles in the first inning in the past 4 games. So Fernando 4 for 4 out of the leadoff spot in the bottom half of the first inning in this homestand so far. So just an interesting little note there. We'll see if Fernando can be productive at the very start of tonight's game offensively for the Padres. Right-hander Walker Buehler on the mound for the Padres here today. He comes in a 5.13 ERA in 21 starts. He's been pretty good. Last 2 outings has given up 4 earned runs in 11 innings during his final 2 starts of July. It's Walker Buehler against right-hander Tyler Mahle for San Francisco as the Padres look to make it 2 straight wins. Padres losing on Thursday, bouncing back with a really nice 7-0 win in last night's affair, and now the Padres trying to get a win on this Saturday evening. When we come back, we hear from Jesse and Tony. They have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. As always, we appreciate you tuning in to our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show right here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody, on a beautiful Saturday night.